Accidentally punched my stepdaughter and broke her nose, then my wife blamed me despite years of enabling her daughter's behavior, and admitted she only married me because I was stable. I, 38M, married Judd, 44F, a few years ago and I acquired a stepdaughter, Abby, 14F, as a result. I dated Judd when Abby was 8, met her when she was 9, and married Judd when she was 10. I'd say our relationship is okay, she doesn't act bratty towards me and respects me enough as her mom's husband. However, there is one glaring issue about her and that is her pranking nature. For context, I never wanted to be a stepdad. I mean, I knew Judd had a kid when we started dating, but I wasn't looking to be anybody's father figure. My own dad was pretty absent growing up, and I honestly didn't know the first thing about raising kids. But Judd was amazing, smart, funny, independent, and we just clicked right away. She made it clear from the beginning that she wasn't looking for a new dad for Abby, just a partner for herself. That arrangement worked fine for me. When I first met Abby, she was pretty quiet. She'd just nod at me and go back to whatever she was doing. Judd said she was just shy, but looking back, I think she was sizing me up. The pranks didn't start until after we got married and I moved into their house, which is now technically my house since I bought Judd out of her ex's share, but that's a whole other story. Abby loves to pull pranks. I'm not talking about harmless jokes, I'm talking about elaborate setups that take serious planning. Some examples are her hiding my car keys with what looked like 100 key duplicates in a box. I found them quickly because she failed to notice my keys have duct tape on them. They're taped because the plastic broke off and I'm too cheap to buy a new one. Another time she hid in the fridge, something I still find very weird, to scare the first person who opened it. She once replaced all the family photos around the house with pictures of Nicolas Cage. It took Judd 3 days to notice. She put saran wrap over the toilet bowl in the middle of the night. Classic, but I was the one who had to clean up the mess at 3 a.m. She set all the clocks in the house forward by 45 minutes, which made me late for an important meeting. She put food coloring in the shower head, and I had to go to work with a slightly blue tint to my skin that took 3 days to fully wash off. There's been dozens of these pranks and honestly, I've just been putting up with them because what the hell am I supposed to do? She's not my kid. I've mentioned it to Judd maybe 5 to 6 times but she just says that's just how Abby is and she'll grow out of it and I'm pretty much stuck dealing with it. I did try to talk to Abby directly once, told her that some of her pranks were crossing the line, but she just shrugged and said it's just a joke and walked away. That was probably about 8 months ago, and I gave up after that. I should probably mention that Abby's actual dad hasn't been in the picture since she was like 4 or 5. I don't know the full story there, Judd doesn't like talking about him, but I gather he just took off one day and never came back. I always figured that had something to do with Abby's behavior, but I'm not a psychologist or whatever. Well, last Wednesday, I arrived home from work around 5:30. It seemed that I was the only one there. Only my shoes were at the doorstep and I even called out Judd's and Abby's names with no answer. This is somewhat normal as Judd sometimes works late and Abby stays at school for extracurriculars. So I screwed around with my dog, a German Shepherd and Husky mix for anyone who will ask. Her name is Luna and we've had her since she was a puppy, for a bit, throwing her ball around the living room and giving her some treats. Then I decided to relieve myself. It had been a long day. I had a bunch of meetings back to back and didn't even get a chance to use the bathroom at work. So I really had to go. When I got to the bathroom I noticed that the window cabinet was open. I thought nothing of it at first and unzipped my pants but then I saw a shadow behind the shower curtains. I thought the worst and immediately punched the figure behind the curtains. Well, as everyone may have guessed it from the title, it was Abby. She was making a prank video and I had not noticed that she propped her phone up on the bathroom cabinet with 2 cups. I'm not gonna lie, I did not hold back. I punched her as hard as I could. I'm not a big guy, 5 feet 9 inches, average build, but I hit the gym 3 to 4 times a week and I know how to throw a punch. Her nose looked broken right away and when I realized it, I flipped out and so did she. She was screaming and crying, blood everywhere. I was panicking, grabbing towels, trying to stop the bleeding while also trying to process what the hell just happened. After maybe 5 minutes of freaking out I drove her to urgent care and informed Judd of the situation. I called her from the car, which was probably dangerous but I was kind of losing my mind at that point. She said she'd meet us there. Her nose was indeed broken and would need about 6 to 12 weeks of recovery. The doctor said something about a displaced nasal fracture and how they'd need to realign it, which honestly made me feel even worse. The car ride was complete silence. I didn't know what to say. I mean, what do you say to a kid whose face you just smashed in? I tried to start a conversation once, something like I'm really sorry, I didn't know it was you, but she just turned away and stared out the window, holding a bloody towel to her face. I didn't try again after that. At urgent care it wasn't much better. The staff obviously gave me some serious side-eye, especially when Abby kept saying he punched me with a bloody face. I had to explain like 3 different times to 3 different people what happened. The nurse looked like she didn't believe me at all. The doctor was a bit more understanding, but still asked Abby if she felt safe at home while giving me this look. Then they took her back to treat her and left me in the waiting room feeling like total garbage. When Judd showed up, she was surprisingly calm about it. I mean, I expected her to go nuclear, but she just sighed a lot and asked what happened. When I explained, she looked at Abby and said, "Are you serious?" Which was unexpected. I thought for sure she'd be pissed at me. Then she just sat down and started filling out insurance paperwork. They realigned Abby's nose, which apparently involved sticking metal things up her nostrils and physically moving the bone back into place. I could hear her crying from the waiting room. They gave her some painkillers and a bunch of care instructions, plus a referral to an ENT to follow up in a week. The whole thing took about 3 hours. On the way home, Judd drove while I sat in the back with Abby, who was still not talking to me. Judd stopped at the pharmacy to pick up Abby's prescription, and while she was inside the car, Abby finally spoke to me. She said, "I didn't think you'd hit me." And I didn't know what to say to that. Like, what did she expect to happen when she hid in the bathroom and scared someone? Abby won't talk to me since we got home, and as for Judd, she thinks that my action may have been justified but also thinks I should have approached with more caution, which she has refused to elaborate on. Like, what the fuck does that even mean? How exactly do you cautiously approach someone hiding in your bathroom when you're about to take a piss? Am I supposed to announce my presence to potential intruders? "Hello, burglar, I'm just coming in to use my own toilet, please don't murder me." I tried to talk to Judd about it the next morning, but she just said I need time to process this and left for work early. When she came home, she told me Abby was staying with her grandparents for a few days because supposedly looking at me triggers her anxiety or something. I asked if I should apologize, and Judd just shrugged and said, "Would it be sincere?" Which I thought was kind of a shitty thing to say. Of course I'm sorry I broke her nose. I'm not a monster. But am I sorry I defended myself against what I thought was an intruder? No. I'm honestly confused about how I'm supposed to feel. On one hand, I feel like absolute shit for breaking a 14-year-old's nose. On the other hand, who the fuck hides in someone's bathroom to prank them? That's just weird and invasive. And filming it? That's even more fucked up. What was she even planning to do with that video? Post it online for strangers to laugh at me using the bathroom? The more I think about it, the more disturbed I am by the whole thing. Judd's been weird about it too. Sometimes she seems pissed at Abby, sometimes she seems pissed at me, and sometimes she just seems tired of everything. I don't know if I'm supposed to apologize or what. So Ada? Was I wrong to react the way I did? Should I have somehow known it was her hiding there? Update 1. Well, this blew up big time. I went to bed last night with like 12 comments and woke up to hundreds of notifications. I've been reading through as many as I can, but there's no way I can respond to everyone. Let's address a few things people keep asking about. First, to all the people saying I'm an abuser or that I enjoy hitting children, fuck off. I've never hit Abby or any child before this incident. This was a reflexive action to what I perceived as a threat. If you've never experienced the adrenaline rush of thinking there's an intruder in your home, then you don't know how you'd react either. Second, several people have asked why Abby was home when I thought no one was there. Apparently she had told Judd she was staying after school for debate club practice, but it got cancelled at the last minute. Instead of texting anyone, like a normal person would, she decided to come home and set up her prank. She was hiding in the shower for almost 30 minutes waiting for someone to come use the bathroom. That's dedication, I guess? Third, a lot of you are asking about Abby's phone in the video. Yes, I made her delete it at the hospital. In retrospect, I should have saved it as evidence that I wasn't just randomly attacking her, but I wasn't exactly thinking clearly at the time. I was more concerned with making sure there wasn't footage of me using the bathroom floating around. Abby's pranking nature isn't just situated on me, she has pulled pranks on her friends, the neighbors, and at school. The school has called Judd several times about this as they have resulted in mild vandalism. Last year she put clear plastic wrap on all the toilet seats in the girls' bathroom. The year before that she put a Bluetooth speaker in a ceiling tile and played fart sounds during a test. She once filled a teacher's desk drawer with shaving cream. When we got called in for that one, Judd just laughed it off and said kids will be kids while I sat there wondering what was wrong with this family. She's also done stuff to the neighbors. She ding-dong ditched the old couple next door at 10 p.m., which doesn't sound that bad except the husband has mobility issues and it takes him forever to get to the door. She put fake dog poop on another neighbor's welcome mat. She switched around people's Halloween decorations one year, which led to a pretty heated argument between two families down the street who each thought the other had stolen their stuff. To be clear, I'm not some violent dude who's always looking for a fight. I wasn't even in the military or anything like some of you assumed. I just reacted on instinct. Who the hell wouldn't freak out finding someone hiding behind their shower curtain? It's like the setup for every horror movie ever. Some of you asked about our home security. We have a basic alarm system, but it wasn't armed because Abby was already home. We don't have cameras inside the house because, well, privacy. I'm starting to think maybe we should, though, just to protect myself from future pranks. The update: it's been a chaotic week. Judd still refused to elaborate on how the situation should have been handled even though she was kinda okay at it at first. I asked her directly, what exactly should I have done differently? And she just said, you know what I mean, and walked away. No, Judd, I don't know what you mean. That's why I'm asking. After 3 days of this back and forth, I showed the post and comments to her as a result and she did a 180 turn. I think seeing hundreds of internet strangers say her daughter was in the wrong finally made something click. She suddenly thought it may be time to stage an intervention and I agreed. We brought some of her friends as well as my cousin's wife, Jess. Jess is an officer from another state and Abby seems to respect her. I'm not entirely sure why, maybe because Jess doesn't take any shit from anyone. She's pretty intimidating even though she's like 5 feet 2 inches. My cousin met her at a bar 5 years ago and it was love at first sight or whatever. They got married after dating for just 3 months, which everyone thought was crazy, but they seem happy enough. Anyway, we gathered in our living room last Saturday. There was Judd and me, Jess, Judd's best friend Tara, who I've always thought was kind of a flake, but whatever, Judd's sister Michelle, and Abby's grandmother, Judd's mom. Abby came home from her grandparents' house not knowing what was going on, and you could see the oh shit moment on her face when she walked in and saw everyone sitting there looking serious. In this intervention we each stated how we were affected by her various pranks and how in turn they affected her. Judd went first, talking about how embarrassing it is to get called by the school constantly. I went next, listing off all the pranks she's pulled on me and how they made me feel disrespected in my own home. Tara talked about the time Abby put salt in her coffee when she was visiting, which I didn't even know about. Michelle mentioned how Abby had caused a scene at Thanksgiving last year by putting plastic spiders in the turkey when it was being carved, another one I wasn't aware of. Jess also spoke about how much of these pranks border on criminal territory, meaning she could be arrested or face retaliation. That last part didn't sit well with me, but I didn't say anything because everyone else seemed to think it was fine. Jess went into detail about how things like vandalism, invasion of privacy, and harassment could lead to actual charges, especially as Abby gets older. You're only 14 now, she said, but in 4 years, you'll be tried as an adult. And trust me, judges don't think these pranks are funny. The whole thing lasted about 2 hours and honestly felt awkward as hell. Abby just sat there looking at the floor most of the time while different adults took turns telling her she was being a shithead, not in those exact words, but basically. I started to feel bad for her about halfway through, but then I remembered my fading blue skin from the shower head incident and hardened my heart again. It seemed to have gotten to her and Abby cried a bit and promised to do better. She apologized to everyone individually, though when she got to me her apology was pretty brief. Just a mumbled sorry for hiding in the bathroom without making eye contact. I said I was sorry for hitting her too, and she nodded, but there's still this obvious tension between us. When everybody else left, Jess stayed behind and brought to our attention a disciplinary camp that we could send her to. The program is 6 weeks long and involves group therapy, individual therapy and constructive projects, whatever that means, and is held at a university campus in Arizona. The program apparently has good reviews. Jess said her department has referred several troubled teens there with positive results. Judd seems dead set in sending her to figure out her core problems. I'm a little hesitant about sending a kid away from home, but I'm the step parent so I got no say. I mentioned maybe trying regular therapy first, but Judd thinks this whole situation needs a more drastic approach. Abby came back home yesterday and has been basically hiding in her room. She only comes out when I'm not around, which I guess I understand. Her face looks pretty rough, all bruised up. I feel like shit every time I see it. The bruising around her nose has turned this yellowish purple color that's honestly pretty horrifying. The ENT said everything is healing properly, though, so at least there's that. Judd and I had another argument last night about the camp thing. I think it's excessive for what happened, and pointed out that it would mean Abby missing 6 weeks of school. Judd said they have tutors there and it wouldn't affect her education. I asked how much it cost, and apparently it's like $12,000, which is insane. I asked who was paying for it, and Judd said we are, obviously. Which is the first I've heard of we in this whole situation. I'm not against spending money on Abby's well-being, But $12,000 for a glorified summer camp seems extreme when we could probably get just as good results from regular therapy at a fraction of the cost. I said as much, and Judd accused me of caring more about money than Abby. That's not fair at all. I'm the one who's been saying from the beginning that this was an accident and we should approach it with some perspective. Edit. Okay, I swear Judd must be following my posts because now she's taking back what she said and is now thinking about doing what I and you fellow Redditors suggested in the first place, weekly therapy. So we agreed that I'm gonna find a therapist and I'm gonna front the bill for it since she didn't take this seriously in the first place. Hopefully this works because I'm really at the end of my rope here. I'll update again if anything significant changes. For now, we're in this weird limbo where Abby is barely speaking to me, Judd is flip-flopping between blaming me and blaming Abby, and I'm just trying to keep my head down and get through each day. Thanks for all the advice and support, except for those of you calling me an abuser, you can still fuck off. Update 2, I can't believe people are still interested in this. My inbox has been a mess for months. Well, it's been 7-ish months and there have been a few developments. Let's address some more things before getting there. Up until recently I have been still getting DMs asking why is this Brett still in my house, why am I friends with Jess and why did I name my wife Judd in my posts. I was drinking when I made my first post, I saved a draft and went back to it after a few hours of sobering up fixing a bunch of grammatical mistakes but clearing some got overlooked and it just stuck. I was planning on calling her Judy. I'm not great with technology and didn't know how to edit the username after posting. For those asking for more details about what happened immediately after the incident, the first couple of weeks were incredibly tense. Abby's face was swollen and bruised for about 10 days. She couldn't breathe properly through her nose and had to sleep sitting up. She missed a week of school, and when she went back, she told everyone she fell down the stairs. I know this because one of the teachers called to check on her and mentioned how accidents happen at home all the time. There was this underlying accusation in her tone that made me feel like shit all over again. Judd and I were barely speaking. We do this awkward dance around each other in the kitchen in the mornings, muttering excuse me and sorry as we tried to make coffee without making eye contact. We slept in the same bed but with our backs to each other. It was like living with a roommate you're fighting with, except worse because we were supposed to be partners. Jess and I are not friends, she married to my cousin who I do have a good relationship with as well as their 2 daughters and Jess's daughter. Jess has a serious problem with boundaries. She's the type who thinks being a cop means she needs to police everyone in her life. We only invited her because Abby seems to listen to her for some reason. After the intervention, Jess kept texting me links to articles about troubled teens and juvenile delinquency. I eventually had to block her number because it was getting so annoying. As for why Abby was still living with me, you have to understand, her stepfather, broke Abby's, my stepdaughter's, nose. If word got out it would look really bad, I would be seen as an abuser and may have even been arrested. Several comments have pointed this out how I should have saved that video for my own safety. I was pretty much going insane at that point and my wife thought nothing of it, thinking I should have just let this go until I showed her my original post. To be honest, I wanted to keep the intervention that we had smaller that didn't involve her friends because I felt they did not need to know about it. I just wanted her grandparents and Jess to show up but I was convinced otherwise. I think Judd wanted more people there to dilute the tension or something. Or maybe she just wanted witnesses in case things went south. Either way, it was uncomfortable having all those people in our business. We decided that we would send Abby to weekly therapy. We were under the agreement that I would find and pay for it and if it worked my wife would pay me back. Finding a therapist was harder than I expected. I called like 8 different places before finding someone who specialized in adolescents and had openings. Most had waiting lists of 2+ months, which wasn't going to work for our situation. The therapy did work. Abby improved by a lot, she has realized how much damage she has done and working to improve things. The first few sessions, she wouldn't talk about what happened, according to Judd, who took her. But eventually she opened up, and the therapist helped her understand why her pranks were problematic. She has apologized profusely, realizing how disgusting her prank was. About a month into therapy, she came to me directly and gave me a real apology. She said she never considered how her pranks made other people feel, and that she was just trying to be funny like the people she saw online. She mentioned that her friends always laughed at her pranks, so she thought everyone would. I told her there's a difference between pranking your friends who expect that kind of behavior from you, and pranking family members who just want to feel safe and comfortable in their own home. She has also deleted her TikTok account, claiming that's where she got all the ideas from. We decided we would get her a new smartphone for her birthday 3 months ago for the improvement she's shown. We took away all smart devices as punishment. I don't think I mentioned that before. The new phone came with parental controls that limit her social media usage. She complained about it at first, but honestly she seems happier without the constant online validation. But the therapy brought up some other issues. Apparently Abby's been acting out for attention from her mom, who's been pretty checked out of parenting these past few years. This didn't surprise me, but it was the first time anyone said it out loud. Judd works a lot, and when she's home she's usually tired and just wants to watch TV or scroll on her phone. She rarely asks about Abby's day or helps with homework or does any of the typical mom stuff. I've tried to pick up the slack sometimes, but like I said, I never signed up to be a dad. The therapist suggested that Judd and Abby have some sessions together, which Judd reluctantly agreed to. I don't know what happened in those sessions, but Judd always came home in a bad mood afterwards, snapping at me over little things like leaving a glass on the counter or forgetting to take out the trash. As for me and my wife, I gave her an ultimatum: since therapy worked for Abby, it would be time we go to couples therapy or else we separate. We were having problems before this whole incident showed up and now it kinda has to be forced. Past 2 years we've been living more like roommates and her enabling behavior is finally causing things to fall apart. She reluctantly agreed. The first session was awkward. The therapist asked us to describe our relationship in 3 words, and Judd said comfortable, stable, convenient. Not exactly the passionate declaration of love I was hoping for. I said distant, tense, uncertain. The therapist asked us about our communication styles, our conflict resolution tactics, our intimate life, which has been basically non-existent for the past year. It felt like having a spotlight shined on all the broken parts of our relationship that we'd been ignoring. It ended up being short-lived. She spoke during our sessions how I take things out of proportion and I went too far posting the incident online. She revealed that she was indeed following my posts and that's why she changed her mind about the camp. Our therapist then asked us both if we loved each other at all. I was honest and said yes, but it's becoming difficult. My wife on the other hand said she was in love with the idea of me. I needed a minute if I heard that right, and she went on how I was apparently a catch. I was younger than her, had a stable job and owned a house, and she thought my loyalty was a bonus. I don't why, but I asked her if she cheated on me and she said no. But it doesn't matter, she just revealed that she settled for me. The therapist tried to salvage the session, talking about how relationships evolve over time and how initial attraction can develop into deeper bonds, but the damage was done. I couldn't unhear what Judd had said. All this time I thought we had something special, and it turns out I was just a good financial decision for her. We had a huge fight that night when we got home. I accused her of using me as a meal ticket, she accused me of being emotionally unavailable. I said she was a terrible mother, she said I was a violent control freak. We said a lot of things we can't take back. I slept on the couch that night, and the next day I called a lawyer. I filed for divorce a few months ago. We had a prenup, so things are going smoothly other than her erroneously claiming some jewelry as hers, but my lawyer seems to think that it should be finalized within 1 to 2 months. The jewelry in question is a pearl necklace that belonged to my grandmother. I gave it to Judd on our first anniversary, but the prenup clearly states that family heirlooms remain with the original family regardless of gifts. It's not even particularly valuable in terms of money, but it has sentimental value to me. So my Specs has moved out along with Abby. They found an apartment across town. It's smaller than our house, but in a better school district, which I guess is good for Abby. My dog misses them, she just sits by the door waiting for hours for them to come back. I take her for extra walks now, but she still looks sad as hell. Sometimes I think she blames me for them leaving, which is ridiculous because she's a dog and doesn't understand divorce, but the way she looks at me sometimes. Specs is not happy about how things have progressed. She has been calling me a spineless bastard who couldn't just tolerate how things are and has been saying to everyone who will listen. But behind closed doors she's been blaming Abby for her divorce, claiming it was her behavior that caused it. I know this because she has called me and texted me semi-regularly. Mostly drunk texts at 2 a.m. asking why I had to ruin everything and shit like that. Last week she called me crying, saying she missed our life together and wanted to try again. I reminded her that she was in love with the idea of me, not actually me, and she hung up. Abby is living with her grandparents because apparently her mother can't deal with her right now. After they moved into the apartment, they lasted about 3 weeks before Judd shipped Abby off to her parents. Said she needed space and time to establish herself. Whatever that means. I actually liked my in-laws, they were real good people and they've apologized for their daughter's actions and even offered to reimburse me for Abby's therapy sessions. They told me that they were going to take care of Abby because it seems her mother has finally lost it. They invited me over for dinner last month, which was weird but nice. Abby cooked, which surprised me. Apparently her grandmother has been teaching her. She made lasagna and it was actually pretty good. After dinner, her grandfather pulled me aside and thanked me for getting Abby into therapy. He said they'd seen a marked improvement in her behavior and attitude. She's becoming the sweet girl she used to be, he said. That made me feel both good and sad at the same time. Good that I had helped in some way, sad that Abby had lost herself for a while there. I spoke with Abby before I left and assured her that this wasn't her fault. Chances are we were gonna divorce regardless. She then told me that she didn't want me to leave and that I was the closest thing to father she ever had. This surprised me. I never really saw myself as a parental figure for Abby, I only really did the minimal. Outside of that, I just paid for school events, supplies, and would carve out some time for her, but I did leave it up to her if she wanted to spend time with me. I told her that maybe when she turns 18 we can pick up where we left off, but until then I don't think we can see each other. Her mother would definitely try to keep her away from me, and to be honest, I need some time away from Abby as well. I didn't mention that last part to her, of course. Just said that it might be complicated with the divorce and everything. She seemed to understand, but looked disappointed. She gave me a hug before I left, which was the first physical contact we'd had since the incident. Things are so quiet at home that it's relaxing. Sometimes I miss the chaos, but mostly I'm just glad to have some peace and quiet. It's been nice to have time for myself again. So there you go. I don't even care if my specs reads this post. I might update again if anything major happens, but honestly I hope nothing does. Just want to move on with my life. The divorce should be final next month, and then I can truly put this chapter behind me. So I guess my question now is, did I do the right thing here?